Okay, all right.
I'm literally saying get rid of all subsidies,
And
but also for oil and gas.
if you think about also how this affects your competitors, does that impact how some of your view on this?
I mean, maybe they need it. I don't know, but I think just generally, I'm in favor of deleting subsidies. I mean, when we started Tesla, there were no EV subsidies at all, and gasoline was super cheap. We did not anticipate any subsidies. That came later, and that came the $7,500 tax credit came as a result not of Tesla activity, but of General Motors lobbying for it. So you know, I would just say just delete them all.
All right, but there's some other good things in this bill that some would argue. I mean, a lot of money earmarked for R&D. Would you want to put that towards something?
No.
Okay. All right. All right. We're going to move on from the bill because I think we get what you're saying on it.
In general, we should just if we don't cut government spending, something really bad's going to happen. This is crazy. Our spending is so far in excess of revenue. It's insane. Like you could zero out all billionaires in the country. There's all this like anti-billionaire BS. If you zeroed out all the billionaires, you still wouldn't solve the deficit.
All right, I'll ask you another question around the billionaire BS. Say tomorrow we've talked, you get the phone call from President Biden. Next day, actually, we decide we elect you to Congress. Somehow this happens. You're now working on tax bills. You're working on tax policy. How do you tax someone like you? How do you tax billionaires?
I mean, first of all, I pay a lot of tax. I mean, my marginal tax rate is like 53%. So that's not trivial. And then obviously there's like, asset-based taxes, the sales tax and everything else. There's also the estate tax. And generally, I think the estate tax is a good tax. Like if you think of assets beyond a certain level that are far beyond, let's say, somebody's ability to consume, then at a certain point, really what you're doing is capital allocation. So it's not money for personal expenditures. What you're doing is capital allocation. And it does not make sense to take the job of capital allocation away from people who have demonstrated great skill in capital allocation and give it to an entity that has demonstrated very poor skill in capital allocation, which is the government. I mean, you can think of the government essentially as a corporation in the limit. The government is simply the biggest corporation with a monopoly on violence, and where you have no recourse. So how much money do you want to give that entity?
Could you explain the last part quickly, and then I want to move on to some product stuff.
Sure. I mean, I can talk for a bit longer if you'd like than the half an hour. If you're worried about getting through all your questions.
I hear we have nobody else joining us at this conference.
Yeah, I mean, government is a corporation in the limit. So it is the most corporate thing. It is maximum corporation, but it's also a monopoly, and also is the only one that's allowed legally to do violence. So why would you want to give a corporation with no competition that can't even really go bankrupt more money? Now, it's not as though I think the government shouldn't exist or that they're not good things that the government can do or things that are necessary for the government to do. For example, science programs where we send a probe to Mars, and the value of that is it's a small amount of value for all citizens, but it would be inefficient to sort of go and collect $10 from every citizen for a Mars probe, and so therefore it's better to have the government do something like that, like a heavy science program, rather than try to collect small amounts of money from everyone. So I'm not somebody who's sort of an extreme libertarian and thinks the government should not do anything. I just think we should minimize what the government does, because the government's efficiency at spending is just going to be lower than a competitive commercial company, but by a lot. If you look at, say, East Germany versus West Germany, or North Korea versus South Korea, and you look at the GDP per capita of East and West Germany or North and South Korea, the difference is gigantic. And that's just the difference between East and West Germany. It's like a random line was drawn, basically depending on where the Red Army was and where the Allied troops were. And East Germany's productivity was like at least 5 times worse than West Germany. And it's not like West Germany was like some bastion of capitalism. They were quite socialist, really. So there may be as much as an order of magnitude difference between the efficiency of a competitive private company versus the government.
I'm going to shift away from government, come back to your world. Just thinking about sort of how you juggle Tesla and SpaceX, and you've said along the way that the workload at Tesla is quite a lot. Have you? And I know now you could regain the chairman position. Have you thought about that? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about your sort of your title and your position there right now?
I mean, it's interesting that these titles. You know that there's actually only three titles that actually mean anything for a corporation. It's president, secretary, and treasurer, and technically they could be the same person. And all these other titles are just basically made up. So CEO is a made-up title, CFO is a made-up title, general counsel a made-up title. Don't mean anything.
That's a nice. I think a room of CEOs are how we feel about that. Yep.
It was like obviously just somebody's marketing experiment. So
I guess I'll be more direct. I mean, are you considering stepping down as CEO? Would you transfer, be chairman, and think about being chief product officer? I mean, since CEO title doesn't matter anyway.
I changed my title to Techno King. And by the way, this is a formal SEC filing. I'm legally or whatever Techno King. I just did that as kind of like a joke because just to show that these titles don't mean a lot. You can see what is actually legally necessary if you fill out the form for creating a C corp, and then you'll see it's president, treasurer, and secretary. And you need a director too, but that's basically it. And then all these other chief whatever officer are basically just made up.
Is the Tesla bot in the running for any of these titles?
Not yet. It's maybe in the future.
But speaking of the Tesla bot, I know you've talked about the importance of creating this bot for the future of AI. Tell me a little bit about where you're at with this project and what we can expect in the next coming months.
Well, with the Tesla autopilot or full self-driving, we're effectively, I think, creating the most advanced practical AI for navigating the real world. And you can also think of Tesla as like the world's biggest robot company, or semi-sentient robot company. So then, the car is kind of a robot on 4 wheels, and so then, we could probably take that same technology and put it in a humanoid robot and have that robot be useful. So essentially, to have the humanoid part, we need to develop some custom actuators and sensors, and then essentially use the Tesla full self-driving or autopilot, or just generally speaking, real-world navigation AI in the humanoid robot. And I think this could be quite profound. I don't know